share these slides with you. This is another draft cut here. All right. Okay, this is the slide, and we're fighting with some people about violence and other things, about who deserves what. And just trying to get a good sound check on some of these things here. And I may be too close to it, and may not. I have noise in the background. But okay, so my issue is that there are so many factors in this that you may have lost sight. Okay, this is about iconoclasm. Okay, so there's a lot of symbology here. The Native American is reluctant to take the hand of the padre. Okay, but it's really part of a longer term thing here, and it really does amount to what I'm going to call iconoclasm. Okay, it's not that we worship any of these people; it is just that we honor them, and there's a big difference. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson owned slaves. George Washington owned slaves. Robert E. Lee owned slaves, but he freed them right before he went to war with the Americans, the with those who were in the anyway. Okay, so you see what's happening with that. Okay, and then of course Jesus. He was actually banned years before any of this other stuff was. Okay, and Christ has always been on a target. Okay, so all of this comes down to the new judges of America, and that is the social justice warriors. And by some sleight of hand, these people who claim to be the oppressed believe that they should have the power, the money, which they haven't earned, and the grievances they claim to represent is nothing that has happened in their lives. And, but anyway. Okay, so, iconoclasm. But, what you have to know about the Spanish is that they had been both slaves and the oppressors. Okay, so here they were as ordinary barbarians, oppressed by the Romans, and they get into themselves later as Rome declines. They come up, okay, and they're the Visigoths. Okay, and these are essentially the Visigothic territories. Okay, and then with the collapse of Rome, they have their own thing here. Okay, the kingdom of the Vandals. Okay, so after 700 A.D. or so, the Caliphate from Baghdad controls most of the area in the southern Mediterranean, the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea. Okay, so their little empire stretches, and they break off, and the Umayyad Emirate actually still reports to Baghdad. Okay, and at least some of the early generals did. Okay, but later on, they lose touch altogether because it's an entire 700 years. Okay, so what happens in this is that it is the conquests of the Muslims into uh, into France is stopped at the Battle of Poitiers, and somehow this little lady, she gets wrapped into this, right? Because there it is, okay, and so after a while, the Caliphate of Cordoba uh, starts to get pushed back. Okay, that's just a historical fact. These things happen. That's how things work. Okay, oppressor, oppressed. Okay. Oh, Isabel and Ferdinand, as youngsters, okay, they go on to unite Spain. Okay, and they take Grenada. Okay, and then here's the old Caliph, and this is the Alhambra. Okay, and that's how it looks today. And they put a chapel in there, but it is still quite a tourist attraction. Okay, and it is in there that Christopher Columbus makes the pitch for the money for the sailing to the shortcut to China. Okay. Okay. Oh, here's something else out of order here. This is another picture, modern day Alhambra. Okay, it's sort of a little oasis. Okay, some of the fine artwork inside of it. So Columbus gets to America, and he thinks it's the Indies, and hence we have the West Indies. Okay, and they don't figure out for some time until somebody circumnavigates the globe, and that's Magellan. Okay, another European. Okay, so until somebody can provide some evidence that somebody else circumnavigated the globe and then has records of it, I'm sorry. Okay, maybe you weren't that great a sailor. Okay, the ships sail back and forth, and then there becomes a permanent place of settlement for the Europeans. Okay, it won't be until another 100 years or so that the northern Europeans get a permanent settlement. Okay, so we're talking Jamestown and whatnot, but the Spanish really were here first. Okay, that is indisputable, and then of course a part of why the Spanish beat the Aztecs. Okay, now relatively small group of Spaniards were involved. Okay, but a large group of people who were being eaten by the Aztecs joined them. Okay, as they went through and overcame Montezuma, etc., and the rest is history. Okay, now La Raza actually teaches the Aztec language because they would like to be Aztec kings. Okay, now they're mostly socialists. Okay, but it would be sort of a ethnic socialism, maybe even a national socialism, except of course there's a permanent ruling class. Okay, now what is true about Spanish culture in general is that they are still haven't gone through what you would call a democratic phase. Okay, having an election. Okay, and you know what, the Cubans, since Fidel Castro, have been holding elections every year or every term. Okay, and Castro, the dictator, calls himself the president. Okay, So it's just one of these things. It's just one of these things. But there is a cultural component that says that there's going to be a ruling class, and it's going to be Fidel's family. Okay, just like Che came from an elite class. Okay, so now and again you get somebody like Hugo Chavez, okay, who comes up from the bottom, then steals money, and then he's an aristocrat, and he's not letting go of that. I mean, it's that's just how some people roll. Okay, so so one of the leading groups that came to Mexico as missionaries was the Jesuits. Okay, and along with them came the Franciscans, and then also the Dominicans. And the Jesuits really were remarkable. They went all around the world. Okay, this is them in Japan's little pictures here. Okay, and this is Francis Xavier, who actually died in South China Sea. Okay, and then here is a picture of the Jesuits as they got into China. Okay, and they were very powerful, very rich. Okay, and they were also in North America. Let's see their exploits. Okay, so I'd already mentioned China. They were everywhere. Very successful, and with success comes money, power, and hatred of them. Look at this. Confucius in Latin. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's see here. A procession. Oh yes. There's an Inquisition, and wherever the Catholic Church was going back in the day, since they were facing problems in Europe, they took that Inquisition model all over. Okay, and I believe that they were setting on fire some of the earliest Christian sects that had left the area controlled by the Roman Church. Okay, and the Dominicans dealt with these people who were gone before the great councils, such as Nicaea. Anyway, so here were the key players who tried to get back at the Jesuits for being uncooperative. Okay, so we have the Portuguese Duke, who is who's at war with Rome all the time anyway. Charles III, who was a great reformer of the Spanish economy, but it didn't last out. But the Spanish economy. Okay, let me just diverge just for a second here. All that gold, that Inca and Aztec gold, it went to foreign goods. Okay, and Spain never really developed that kind of trade and commerce that other Europeans were going through, and so they were kind of retarded in that way. Okay, and aside from other turmoil, they didn't have their civil war until the 20th century. Okay, and that was the most extreme example as far as modern revolutions go. All right. Okay, so when the Jesuits were banned from those territories, including the Spanish territories, some of the territories left to the vacated missions was taken over by the Franciscans. Okay, because the Franciscans were were among the most um, um, popular because they lived even very austere lives, and often people who are very austere are going to steer towards something in that area. Okay, so so the Franciscans um, start moving inland. Okay, and they're the ones who were part of the expedition up to uh, Alta California, which is the upper part, where which is the modern California. Okay, so, and these are the but it was a 5 or 6 year program, and well, geez, and some of them came much later, like San Jose, 1797. Okay, and oh, look at this, Antonio de la Pala. All of these missions were built by Indians who came to live in the missions. Okay, they built the churches. Okay, they tilled the land. These hunter gatherers um, are the ones who essentially turned California into an agricultural state, into an agricultural land. And so this is one of the successful projects. But of course, this land then gets hustled down, and within a couple generations, these mestizos, okay, people who were part Spanish, and then anyway, a whole lot of history that goes on in this. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now because this whole exercise was a what the heck? Here we go.